Modern mythology, modern mythology, modern mythology.
Welcome, everybody, to Modern Mythology, the first episode. Originally, we were going to do something that I had talked about in a previous episode of another show we do, Off Panel, Off Topic. Well, we're not doing it this week, or this time around. We will be doing it at a different time, so we're going to switch gears.
Mm-hmm.
But it's something that is interesting just in terms of like a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but I'm done talking about it because I'm not driving this one. I am, and how modern mythology works, ladies and gentlemen, is one of us takes a piece of lore, and I mean, I'm not just saying like we're going to talk about this one particular book. I'm saying something that's a little bit more niche, something that not a lot of people would know about.
Kind of taking a deep dive into a niche.
One particular thing that maybe not a lot of people know about, and kind of just talk about the lore of it. And that's what we're doing here today. Whether and the lore, whether it be in the context of the narrative of the story, or if it's, as what we're going to be talking about today, which is, behind the scenes stuff. So anyway, Tyler, take it away.
So, my modern mythology, excuse me, is G.I. Joe comic books published by Marvel Comics Group from 1982 to 1994. Now, for those of you who are unaware, Hasbro owns Hasbro owns G.I. Joe and Transformers. And back in the 50s or 60s, I believe, they had a 12-inch G.I. Joe doll. And they had all the different, you could get different outfits for them and stuff. It was basically a Barbie for boys, right?
Yeah.
That was the size it was, the scale, whatever.
Yeah.
And so, circa 1981, excuse me, circa 1981, Hasbro is watching Kenner just basically print money off of these Star Wars toys. And they're a 3.5-inch action figure, right?
Oh, yeah.
So they're like, okay, hey, brainstorm, let's make the G.I. Joe into a 3.5-inch scale figure, and then let's make a bunch of different ones and, make characterizations and everything. And in 1981, Hasbro CEO Steven Hessenfeld and Marvel president Jim Galton meet, and they talk about this. And they're like, hey, we really want to get in on this. And Jim Galton, the Marvel guy, says, let us jump on as creative consultants. And Larry Hama starts writing these concepts. And the reason why he got the G.I. Joe gig was that nobody else would do it. And he's like, I'll do this all day, right? Now, he had been writing a concept at that point. He's been at Marvel for a while. He's an editor, writer, penciler. But he had been working on a concept called Fury Force, which would have been born out of Nick Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. It was a S.H.I.E.L.D. central book, right?
Yeah.
And he decides, okay, I'm going to take all those concepts and move it over to this G.I. Joe thing. And then it came about 3 or 4 years or 6 months later that somebody was like, hey, let's make Cobra their arch enemy or whatever. And that would be kind of the stand-in for Hydra in the comics, right?
Well, you asked the question and you took a sip. I was like, I don't know if I have an answer. But anyway, continue. Well, I just, this whole concept, I think, is interesting. And I'm not saying it's uniquely American. I'm sure, and I'm positive it happens in other countries. But I think it's such, and maybe it's because I'm a parent now, and so I've been watching more of kids programming.
Yeah.
Where I'm seeing that they're building narrative around a product.
Yeah.
And G.I. Joe, Transformers, all this stuff is to push toys. And it's always been about pushing toys. And I think that's what's so funny about it is what we're going to probably talk about more into the stories of it, of just how, and Transformers is another example of how especially the IDW books are such interesting books of where this is where we can take these characters which started as a toy.
Yeah.
And it's like, again, it's so funny that they're like, okay, so now we have to build this whole thing
Right.
around, and like, and you see it
Well,
repeated so many times.
You look up until the
Even
point.
today, it still
up until the
happens.
point, up until about the 70s or so, like, most toy lines were like a hero and maybe they had a villain, but that was like it. There weren't a lot of like, hey, this is one team and then this is the other team. Or if you got a GI
Oh,
Joe,
yeah.
if you got a 12-inch GI Joe action figure, that was just
That's it. That's
a
just
dude.
a G.I. Joe.
It's
yeah.
just a dude. Yeah, there's no like file card or whatever. Transformers, Star Wars kind of started all that, and then
getting the different characters
Disney
and collecting all that.
kind
yeah.
of got in with Tron figures and everything else, and people started realizing that kids really liked when they could kind of make their favorites. They could pick out their favorites out of the ensemble or whatever. And
Yeah,
since
'cause
most of
it's
this stuff
just
was
all
animated,
fantasy, yeah.
there's no actor to get egotistical about it, so it works perfectly
Your
to sell
child's
toys.
mind. You can do whatever you want. Yeah.
Now, in 1982 is the first time that a commercial was used to promote a comic book, which was G.I. Joe #1, published by Marvel. And in
1982,
Mhm.
which, by the way, I want to point out that,
2 years before
19
Van Halen's awesome album in 1984, for those of you.
1962, we have the introduction of Spider-Man. In 1963, we have the introduction of the X-Men. I think we also get Daredevil around that time. Well, my point is like we have already established like the big players of the Marvel Universe, and we still hadn't seen a TV commercial for a comic book. That's kind of crazy. Think
Well,
about
the interesting thing, and this is really kind of a deep dive, but Hasbro used television advertising to publicize the series. Now, the reason why it had been the first time was commercials were technically promoting the comic books rather than the toys. Since they allowed Hasbro to circumvent the regulations mandating that toy commercials could not contain more than 10 seconds of animation. By not showcasing any characters and toys outside of the comic book context, they were able to include a full 30 seconds of animation. That's how it came to be that they made like a cartoon out of it. And the cartoon and the comic book and the toy line were all very closely related and all kind of under the direction of Larry Hama, which is really kind of cool when you think about it, because he kind of made all of these crazy characters, and he was a Vietnam War vet himself. Now, one of the things that I really dig, at first the comic books were kind of one shot, so this would happen at the beginning, and then by the end of it, it was resolved, and that was for about the first 8 issues or so.
Yeah.
And one of the fun things is they started introducing characters that never made it to toys. They have since, because of those Super 7 Kenner toy lines. But a couple of things that I wanted to get into about the characterization is that, first of all, G.I. Joe, the official moniker for G.I. Joe is the Special Counter-Terrorist Unit, Delta. In case you didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah. It featured an ensemble cast, and the original 13 characters were Hawk, Stalker, Breaker, he's a communications guy, Clutch, he drove the Jeep, the Vamp, Scarlet, she was the girl with the red hair, Snake Eyes, Rock and Roll, which he had the M60, Steeler drove the tank, Grand Slam drove, I think, anti-aircraft gun, Flash, can't remember, Short Fuse was like a mortar guy, and Grunt was infantry, and Zap was something else. I can't remember exactly. But those are the original 13 guys. And one of the fun things about Snake Eyes is the reason why he became so popular, and why they basically took, when they make molds of the action figures, it generally comes out in a black plastic, okay? And then they paint it.
Yeah.
Right. Now, these were easy because they just made them and then they just popped them out and put them on the shelves. They didn't have to paint them. So that's like time saved, money saved.
Yeah.
That's, we're talking. So, of course, they pushed Snake Eyes to be really popular and whatnot. And that's why they have so many versions of Snake Eye action figures. Now,
Well, sometimes the coolest designs for characters, the coolest things are like the most simple,
Yeah.
you know? I mean, just a ninja like that, like a stereotype. Like, if you just break it down and look at it as like just a stereotypical ninja,
Yeah.
Ninjas just look cool. That's just what it is.
Ninjas are cool, and I really want to talk about the around like issue 7 or 8, we start getting into backstories of these characters because we don't really know a whole lot. At one point, it's revealed that Cobra headquarters is in Springfield somewhere. Now, a lot like The Simpsons, right? For a long time, they wouldn't tell where the Springfield was because apparently Springfield is one of the most common town names in the United States. Anywhere.
I was gonna say there are a lot.
So Cobra, their base of operations in the comics was always known as it was Springfield, USA, but nobody knew where the Springfield was. And in, I want to say issue 6, 7, or 8, something like that, right around the time they started getting into more long form stories, Clutch and I think Scarlet, Clutch and CoverGirl and I think Steeler all get stuck in Springfield, where Clutch grew up. Okay, and Dr. Venom is this one character who never made it to toys until recently, but he's like this crazy mad scientist guy, and he's basically trying to get them to reveal the location of the G.I. Joe motor pool, which is where the headquarters of G.I. Joe is. So they're using all of these techniques to make them feel like they're crazy. And I'm reading this book and I'm like 6 or 7 years old and it's freaking the shit out of me, right? There's one where this guy is like in the ground up to his fingertips and like his nose, and there's a scorpion coming at him. And then there's another one where the guy turned into a turtle and he's on his back and there's just a big heat lamp above him. And it's just like, it's fucking terrifying. And this is not toys and kids anymore. You know, it's like, holy shit, this is like horror movie type shit.
Yeah.
And eventually, we start to learn that Dr. Venom is this fucked up guy, and he has ties to this other guy in the Cobra organization. His name's Scarface. The only reason you know him at all is because they're all wearing those masks with the helmets. So all the Cobra guys look mainly the same. But Scarface, he's got these 2 big scars. And there's this whole long subplot where Snake Eyes, it looks like he gets blown away with this Eskimo guy Quinn and Dr. Venom and Snake Eyes in this underground bunker on the river on the Amazon down in South America, okay? And everybody's grieving Snake Eyes, and what they don't know is that they were all able to get into the bunker before the missile hit. So they're basically underwater and they're trying to get out. And for like a couple of issues, it's this whole thing where they're trying to get out of this sunken bunker and shit. And I always wanted Quinn to be an action figure, and they finally do have one. But he was the coolest guy because he was a very much an anti-hero, and we got to learn more about Snake Eyes. And when the books focused on Snake Eyes, I felt like it was some of the better stuff that they put out. And case in point is issue number 21, which is called Silent Interlude. And the reason why it's called Silent Interlude is because it was a story. I just learned about this today. I knew about the story because we owned the original issue. We saw it when it came out, and it's still considered one of the best comic books ever. And it's G.I. Joe, G.I. Joe, A Real American Hero, number 21, and Snake Eyes is on the cover. And what happens is, so Larry Hama is at Marvel, and I believe it's Denny O'Neil that he talks about. And you have the sound ready, right?
No.
Okay. So Denny O'Neil is the editor, and he's kind of infamous for having all this shit on his desk. So he loses the story, the entire book for number 21, and they have 3 weeks to get this ready. So he's sitting there. Larry Hama is going like, "Well, what do we do?" And this is what he kind of comes up with.
From nothing, right? So I told him, look, if I write it and pencil it, at least do the breakdowns at the same time, that saves 2 weeks. And if I construct the story in such a way that we don't need lettering, we save another whole week because it doesn't have to get sent out to the letterer, So that's what I did. I wrote and drew the 22-page story in 3 days. Started on a Friday, handed it in on Monday.
This is like one of the most iconic comics of all time. I believe.
What?
How many hours? 20 hours? 20
No, I went to sleep. I could do about 7 pages of breakdowns a day, 7 to 8
Waving at you to
pages.
stop. I'm
I
waving
know.
at you
Well,
to
I
stop.
wanted him to finish that.
Right during that laugh would have been fine, I think.
Well, why don't you do your own? Shut up. Anyway, so he wrote that whole thing in 3 days.
Yeah. That's what I thought was always really interesting is that he it reads like when you're reading the book you're like this is a masterpiece. Somebody must have taken however long, but it's often what happens, and you and I understand this as creators, that when there is a deadline, it forces you to kind of, I think you and I are a lot alike. I don't know about Larry Hama, but I think you and I are a lot alike. We like to procrastinate. We don't want to get started, because once we get started, we know we're not going to be done till we're finished. You know what I mean? And we got to have time set aside to do that and whatnot.
Yeah.
And I know that that's how I am. I think you're a lot like that too. And so if there's a deadline, it allows me to tap into that whatever that I wouldn't normally have if I'm just like, I'll get to it whenever. And so Larry Hama comes up with the story and the breakdowns and everything, and it's literally about Scarlet being held captive at a castle that Cobra has, and Snake Eyes glides in to rescue her. And this is, I believe, the first time we see Storm Shadow ever. Okay? Now, Storm Shadow is one of the people he's basically in charge of the castle that he's trying to rescue Scarlet from. So again, there's no dialogue. It's just told through pictures. And it's still, like the interviewer said, it's still considered one of the iconic comic books of all time. Now, at one point, Snake Eyes' forearm of his costume gets ripped. And it shows as he's flying away with Scarlet on the glider, it shows this iconic tattoo. And it's 2 dashes, it's dash dash line, dash dash line, dash dash line, okay? And I've always wanted to get a tattoo because forever that's like it's one of the most iconic tattoos I can think of from anything, let alone comics. And as they're flying away, they show Storm Shadow, who is just lost narrowly a battle with Snake Eyes, and he's standing there watching him fly away, and they zoom in on his forearm, and he's got the same fucking tattoo. Right? And it's like, oh shit, whoa. And this is like, I mean, we don't know much about, we're kind of we're younger kids. We don't really know about like Westerns and revenge flicks and, spaghetti Westerns and ninjas and stuff like that. We just know that it's fucking cool, right?
It's also crazy to think, like, what makes it makes me think of whenever you see, and the most recent one I can think of is something like BoJack Horseman, where BoJack Horseman has a whole episode underwater.
Yeah.
With no dialogue for
Yeah.
majority of the episode.
Yeah.
And it's all visual storytelling, and like to see it done in animation, it's always impressive, but to think about that in a comic book. And it's very, comic books, I feel like, especially, and I've said this before, what I feel like, especially now in the modern era, it is a lot more visual, a lot more cinematic. Whereas in that era, it was, and that's another thing that's so impressive about it for me is especially in that era, it was so wordy. There were so many long paragraphs, it seemed like, of caption and dialogue. Whereas nowadays, you're seeing a lot more of it being, just told straight up through storytelling with a few captions here and there.
Well, there's like.
And to do it in 3 days, to be able to say, okay, I'm going to construct a story that is totally through visual, no dialogue, nothing.
Yeah, and it's
in 3 days.
And I was, if you get a chance, if you still have Comixology, go check it out because it's incredible. And so they get through that, and then get to issue 26 and 27, and we start revealing the past of Snake Eyes. Okay. Now, Snake Eyes and Stalker and Scarlet were all in the same, or is Stalker and Snake Eyes and Duke? Yeah, Scarlet wouldn't have been there. but they're all in the same platoon in Vietnam. Okay, and on his way back to rescue Stalker, I can't remember what his real name is, but he was one of the first GI Joes. On his way to rescue him, he gets hit in the face with the helicopter rocket or something.
Yeah.
Just basically burns his face off. So that's why he always wears a mask and why he can't talk, right?
Yeah.
And it's revealed in these two stories that happens. Now he's also in Chinatown in New York, and he's talking to this guy. He's an older guy, and his name is the Soft Master, right? And the Soft Master and the Hard Master were both teachers in the karate school, martial arts school, where he and Storm Shadow both trained. Now Storm Shadow was like a brother to him, and he, way before he ever went to Vietnam, like that's how he grew up. He was an orphan kid, and they took him in and, basically taught him how to, be a ninja and everything. And there's a point during the story where he's talking to the first guy, Snake Eyes is, or rather he's listening to him because he can't talk. He doesn't talk. But he's telling him about how the Hard Master got killed, got murdered. And what it is that he used to do this thing where he would imitate somebody else's heartbeat. Like that's how good he was at like regulating his own, physiology. And so he's imitating somebody's heartbeat, and he couldn't figure out who it was, but somebody outside the compound thought it was whoever and aced him with a big fucking steel-tipped arrow. Just aced him. And he's dead. And the Soft Master reveals to Snake Eyes, he's like, you never knew this, but the heartbeat he was imitating was yours. Right? So now he's got this burden that the Hard Master got killed because of him, basically. And he doesn't know who this is. And for like a long time in the comics, you don't know who this is. And Storm Shadow believes that Snake Eyes is the guy who killed the Hard Master, right? So that's a whole thing. And so Storm Shadow kind of at some point comes back over to the Joes, kind of. But it's revealed later on down the road that Zartan, the Master of Disguise, is also like a brilliant archer, I guess. I don't know. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense in the grand scheme of things. Like it really, really, really does not, like at all. But when it comes down to it, it was one of the seminal comics of my childhood. Every month you'd be wanting to see what was going on. And there's a point where they go and they try and make an island off of out in the Caribbean. They're basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to raise an island, and this is around the Serpentor stuff, right? So they're trying to basically make a sovereign island. It's Serpentor's idea, and Cobra Commander's kind of around, but I can't remember exactly what happens to him in the comics, but he does get somehow, some way, him and Dr. Mindbender get him a suit of armor. Did you ever see the Cobra Commander with the suit of armor? It's like gold. It's like silver.
I have very, very little G.I. Joe knowledge.
All right, that's fine. But he gets a suit of armor in the comics, which is what he gets in the action figure as well. But he's trying to stage a coup, or he gets a coup staged on him by Serpentor and his whole faction. Destro goes off and makes his own shit. Takes the Baroness with him, and there's a really intriguing storyline. It takes about 5 or 6 issues where Cobra is basically detonating all this sea, the bottom of the sea floor in the Caribbean. And basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to raise up enough land to make an island. And then once they get on the island, back in the United States, they have these diplomats ready to go, and they fucking walk into the United Nations and they go, hey, boom, boom, boom. Here's our claims to sovereignty on this new island. Here's all the evidence that this island exists. Here's everything you need, right? And the United Nations has to fucking recognize Cobra as a sovereign nation. Oh. It's fucking crazy, dude. It takes like 4 or 5 issues, and it's intercut with all this like inner working, like, inner office political intrigue with these fucking really cool like action scenes, taking place. They're trying to basically prevent Cobra from setting off these charges and shit.
Why weren't the movies that?
Because Michael Bay's a fucking moron. I don't know. I have no idea. And the cartoons
Hey,
strayed away from
thanks,
the comics
Paramount.
a lot, in the respect that you wouldn't see people die that often in G.I. Joe comics, but there was the element that could happen. You knew that was never going to happen in the cartoons, which is fine too. But they also shot bullets in the comics, not lasers.
Hey, thinking ahead. We should do a separate episode about the fact that they're doing a G.I. Joe Transformers crossover movie.
Yeah.
And they did it in the comics first.
Yeah.
In the Marvel, because Marvel had the Hasbro rights.
Yeah, I never went to. They had both of them. But I never read any of that stuff. But Transformers comic book was rather interesting as well.
The IDW ones are crazy.
See, that's the thing is I don't really vibe with all that because to me.
Oh, I love it because it gets so much more into Cybertron.
Yeah, but
we're getting
how so? You know what I mean?
There's more backstory to Megatron and Optimus Prime and all that. But anyway, back to G.I. Joe.
But there was this one thing about the Crimson Guardsmen in Cobra, and they came out in like the third wave, I want to say, or Series 3, whatever you want to say. And they were called the Cobra Elite, the Crimson Guardsmen, the CGs. And they were Cobra operatives who were sent to places all over the world, a lot of suburbia in America and everything, and they were complete double agents. They had all the Cobra stuff that they needed, but to the outside, to their neighbors, to their, everybody else, they were just normal Joes until basically like an Order 66 type of thing came out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it was kind of frightening because they showed like how easy it was for these people to just infiltrate regular life. And they would there was a whole sequence where they showed a guy going to work and coming home and kissing his wife and going into his study and opening the closet and there's this Cobra uniform, and it's like, ugh. It's kind of fucked up. But yeah, there's the one thing about they talk about how that Hama created most characters in collaboration with Hasbro, and they'd send him, the character sketches and everything, and he would do background stories of everything and put them on file cards, and Hasbro wanted to make it part of the selling point. And he said it has to be read on two levels. A 10-year-old kid has to be able to read it and think it's absolutely straight, but there should be a joke in there for the adult. One of the factors that helped sell G.I. Joe was that the salesmen who sold it to retailers used the dossiers as a selling point. And that's what made it easy for him to make all these comics.
Yeah.
Because he's already made all the characters. He knows the motivation of everything. It's kind of a perfect storm for this guy, Larry Hama. And he really, again, like for my childhood's sake, like he influenced a lot. He was also the editor on the Nam, which I've talked to you about before. And that was that comic book that stuck to the when the one issue ends, it's 30 days until the next issue. And also in the lives of the comics.
Time, yeah. Which is an interesting concept. Because you know what it makes me think of when you said that? It makes me think of Metal Gear Solid 3, Snake Eater. There's... I never played the game, but I know that there's a character in the game that's old. Mm-hmm. And if it takes you too long to find him or get to him, he'll just die of old age. So, like, if you could just wait him out, which is such an insane thing to think about, that was in a game in, like, in the early 2000s. Like, that's such a funny concept. So that's what it makes me think of like, that idea of real-time progression, which is an interesting concept. It's like, these characters age with us to give them that more realistic feel.
Well, it was designed for the Nam to make sure that no character stayed in longer than 12 issues. Because every tour of duty was 364 days.
Someone's going to die.
They just didn't want anybody past 12 issues, whether they made it their whole tour or not.
Or they left, or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they left. Now, here's some stuff I kind of forgot. They had an annual publication called the G.I. Joe Yearbook starting in 1985, and they were the top-selling subscription title for Marvel in 1985. They're credited with bringing in a brand new audience to comics who bought the toys, watched the cartoon, found the comic. Oh, hey, they publish X-Men too. Boom, boom, boom. So that's kind of cool that they were credited
in
that way.
I think that's like, that and Transformers are an example of like, oh, we are seeing the capitalistic idea of like, okay, and I, again, as a parent, I am witnessing it and watching it of like, take Gwen Stacy, for example, Spider-Gwen. That just became a thing in the last, 10 or so years because of Dan Slott and the Spider-Verse stuff in the comics, right?
Yeah.
And then that takes off because she's in the Spider-Verse movies. And then from that, they put her in that Spidey and His Amazing Friends cartoon that, your kids are going to see, toddlers are going to see, right?
Yeah.
And then now I see that she's in the main Marvel continuity as Ghost Spider, which is what her name is in that cartoon. So you always see that progression of it's always kids, it's always toys, it's always okay. This is how these characters, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's interesting to see like that, like this is kind of the beginning of it with the success of this with G.I. Joe and Transformers is like this is the opportunity of like, oh, we can keep, and then you see, those crossovers with, Batman and Alien and Batman versus Predator.
I got
and stuff
something
like
even
that.
better for you. I sent you a link real quick, and it's for the G.I. Joe. It's for a toy, for a different kind of toy for G.I. Joe, or a different kind of action figure. And you're talking about crossovers, and the G.I. Joe yearbook, they had a who's who for the Marvel Universe, and G.I. Joe and Transformers both got into it themselves. And the first thing that they got, and I'll tell you when to play it, but the first thing that they got was back in the day, they crossovered with the WWE, WWF, Sergeant Slaughter, right?
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
So, and go ahead and play the commercial for us.
They
and see
missed
what it
out though.
sounds.
They could have done one for Hogan's Heroes though with Hulk Hogan. Yeah, that's right. I know it's a robot chicken sketch, but we all thought that joke.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That Joe's in trouble. No, the Cobras are in trouble. That Joe is Sergeant Slaughter. Don't mess with Sergeant Slaughter.
Yeah.
Strong as they come.
We're gonna get copyright.
Meet Sergeant Slaughter and his Triple T tank.
Woo! Sergeant Slaughter. Triple T. What's a Triple T tank?
Turnbuckle?
G.I. Joe. Hey, look out, Cobra. Sergeant Slaughter comes
Whoa.
with T tank. Cobra figures and equipment sold separately.
Wow, incredible.
So that was kind of the
Incredible.
first crossover from that into that. And then they had the William the Refrigerator Perry. Now, I know he's before your time, but in the 1985
Well, I know about
Super Bowl. Okay. Now,
Yeah.
he was Sergeant Slaughter was a send-away action figure first. Then he came out with his own suit and everything, or his own, vehicle, which was a dumbass military vehicle.
The Triple T.
You sit in the front of it with no shielding or armor whatsoever. That's fucking smart. Anyway, what the fuck? Well, you go to see the action. Shut up. Anyway, so Sergeant Slaughter was that, and then Refrigerator Perry was that too. And in one of these who's who type of things that Marvel put out,
Yeah.
they have the first two issues. It was 4 issues. The first 2 were G.I. Joe. The third was Cobra, and the fourth was like vehicles. And the first one comes out, and it has a card for a Rocky Balboa.
Nice.
Yes. In the Cobra section, they have a
Apollo
guy called
Creed.
Cobra Python or Rock Python, and he's supposed to be, I don't know why, but somebody at Hasbro was like, we need a
A rock
Joe
snake.
and a Cobra who can box. Because they both came with the, okay, right?
Yeah.
So understand this. We're of the mind that fucking Rocky, Sylvester Stallone Rocky, is joining fucking G.I. Joe. This is what we're thinking.
Instead of Rambo.
It's in the fucking, right?
Instead of Rambo.
Exactly, right? But it's in the fucking comics, right? It's
Yeah.
in this thing. We go and get, we get the Cobra issue. It comes out a month later.
Yeah.
And in the back of it, it says retraction.
Retraction.
In the last issue, or in the first issue, whatever, Rocky Balboa was listed as a member of the G.I. Joe team. Rocky Balboa is not and has never been, nor ever will be, a G.I. Joe. It's this whole fucking disclaimer, dude. It's great. It's so funny because
Oh my god.
because
That's like watching Jude. That's like watching a TV show. You
Yeah.
have this big moment, and then 2 episodes later, it's like, hey, by the way, fuck that shit. That's not real. Didn't happen.
It was
We're
a
just
dream.
gonna
It was a dream
we're
sequence.
just gonna fucking move on.
Oh, dude! One of the most famous like fuck yous to audiences in American history is
incredible.
Dallas.
Oh yeah,
The Who Shot
the shit.
Jr.
Yeah.
I think it was. I think it was. It wasn't that though. It was Bobby gets shot, and they go through an entire season, and at the very end of the season, they reveal that it was his wife dreaming, and it was just like fuck you. The whole season you just watched never happened. Like
Wow.
fuck you, dude. Anyway, so but the Cobra guy, the Rock Python, I can't remember what his name was, Boulder Python, whatever. But he was this dude with big boxing gloves, and his accessory was a punching bag.
Like a little, like the big,
Like a
like
stand-
the tall
like a
ones that
stand-up-
like dangle,
No, just a stand-up punching bag. You know, it's got a base, and it kind of.
but it doesn't hang. It just kind of just sits.
Yeah.
Oh no, like the speed bag.
But it was on the ground. Like that's all he came with, and you're like, why are we going through this boxing shit? Like I don't get this at all.
It's the sweet science.
In the comics and
Sweet science.
in the comics, Hawk was more of a prominent character. In the cartoon, he doesn't really get more into that until later years when he comes out with his General Hawk uniform. So Duke was, Hawk and Duke were very closely related. I can't remember which one they wanted to get rid of, but Duke went on a lot of the subsequent missions, and he was more of a background character in the comics, while Hawk was kind of, and then in the cartoon it was reversed. Duke was a big part of the comic books, but Hawk not so much. So one of the things that I really just liked about the comic books was that they had those political intrigue things like the Cobra, getting their own island and stuff. But I urge you all, if you have a means to read them, go out and check it out. They also had a spin-off comic book called G.I. Joe Special Mission Force, and those were pretty cool because they were all standalone stories about different covert ops that the Joe team had to do. And the very first issue was they had to rescue a World War II bomber that had a nuke on it, and because of glacial, whatever, it had fallen in the Arctic and into an iceberg, but it was about to go over this cliff because of how many years had passed, whatever. So they had to get the thing off before it fell. It's a really cool book.
Yeah.
I'm very glad I got to read that shit when I was growing up, and thanks to Larry Hama for just making.
I love the end of that because
Maybe.
it felt like you're an athlete after a championship, and you're like in a press conference, and you're like, I'm really glad I got to read that shit. It's great. Big
But
fan of it.
that's my modern mythology. If
Yeah.
again, that Scarface and Dr. Venom and Quinn stuff it's such a big deal in my life when I was a kid, and like it doesn't
Yeah.
mean as much now. But it's just like why, like that's crazy to me. I don't know how it took so long.
Yeah,
but G.I. Joe is big toy in my childhood.
That's something I do.
We had all of
Like as much as I have you and I have criticisms about continuity and with the multiverse and shit and Elseworlds and What If and all that. Of like who's to say what is what? Like there are times when it's cool to like be like, I remember when this was happening, like when this event was happening. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's cool that you can, and that's the beauty. That's the whole point of this show. Is there's a reason we called it modern mythology. It's something I was listening to the Norse mythology book that Neil Gaiman read and wrote, and he said the reason why he wrote it was because he's like, I want you to be able to tell these stories with your friends because that's what this is. And that's what the show's about, of sharing shit like that. Like that's such a fascinating story of just how this, like you said, of this like perfect thing of the comic and the toys and everything aligning at the same time, and just,
I thought it was really interesting because I didn't even know about
and then the cartoon and all that.
right, and I didn't even know about the Marvel. I didn't know that Marvel was so closely involved in the making of the toys and whatnot. You know what I mean? Like I didn't realize that either at all. Also, so, but yeah, but not bad. I think I think I would love to find an omnibus of like the
Yeah.
Marvel G.I. Joe.
Oh, I'm sure there's reprints.
I'm
out
sure there
yeah.
is, yeah. But I would love to buy them and just get them. Did I tell you that I bought an amazing T-Bird hat?
No.
They have hats on TeePublic now.
Hey, you don't plug on the mythology show.
I fucking better.
Whoa!
Anyway,
Anyway, so
there's
yeah,
a
stay tuned.
swear.
Next time.
There's a swear
This isn't.
out
Will
there.
you shut up? This isn't a weekly show. This is something we're gonna do maybe twice a month, whenever our schedule can. So,
After how bad mine was, we might never do it.
yeah,
again.
This is the worst one. So next time, we're gonna do Red Lanterns. I'm gonna tell Tyler all about that because
Red Lanterns.
I want to talk again what the show is about, a little bit more niche stuff. I don't think a lot of people know. They know what a Green Lantern is, but they don't necessarily know what a Red Lantern is or Sinestro Corps or not Yellow Lantern. It's
12 a.m.
Sinestro.
Do you know where your Red Lantern is?
Where is it?
Where is it? Where is it?